Robert Fisher, the man who drugged, raped, and killed a 3-year-old girl last year in Rensselaer, died Tuesday at Elmira Correctional Facility, according to the State Department of Corrections and Community Services. Fisher died less than 2 months after a Rensselaer County judge sentenced him to 20 years to life in prison for the rape and slaying of Josephina Cunningham. Fisher, 34, was pronounced dead at 1:50 a.m., according to DOCCS. A spokesman for the agency declined to discuss how Fisher died, referring instead to a DOCCS statement that the cause of death would be determined by the Chemung County Medical Examiner's Office, and it was up to that agency to decide whether to reveal it. Fisher had been in state prison since September 23rd. The child's death July 7, 2023, in her Rensselaer City home traumatized her family, friends, the community of Rensselaer, and the police, firefighters, and other first responders who answered the emergency call. Fisher drugged the child with her mother's medication, attacked her, and tried to cover up what he had done, prosecutors said at his September 10th sentencing. Fisher had befriended the child's mother, and, prosecutors said, the child was left in his care on the day she died. During the sentencing, Rensselaer County Assistant District Attorney Antonia Edwards said Fisher used Clorox wipes to try to conceal his crimes, scrubbing the child's face so hard he rubbed off the pigment. Edwards described the victim as a loving and caring child. She had a smile that would light up a room. Her teacher said at daycare she would pretend to be a teacher. She would line the baby dolls up and pretend to read to them and to feed them. She had very nurturing qualities. She was a girly girl. In July, Fisher pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and first-degree rape. Judge Deborah Young called Fisher a threat to society. You show no remorse for what you did to Josie. The judge told Fisher he will never be fit to live in the community, adding he hoped any future parole board considering his release from prison would study the sentencing records and other court records and deem him unfit for release. Asked if he wanted to address the court, Fisher muttered, "No." Fisher's former defense attorney, Lucas G. Mahuda, could not be reached for comment Thursday. Chemung County Assistant District Attorney in H. Stark said the office was awaiting the findings of the medical examiner's office to determine if prosecutors had any role to play. Officials in the medical examiner's office could not be reached for comment. The Rensselaer Police Department investigated the 2023 murder. Chief Warren Famiglietti said his department had not been told Fisher died. In a Facebook post, Famiglietti said commenters on social media were expressing joy and relief from the news of his death. Being careful not to express my personal beliefs on a professional platform, I will say that I would find it impossible to compose a rational, articulate argument in opposition of those expressing relief, he said.
After the news conference, Stewart said it's a heinous crime. This case deserves the death penalty. I think that another part of it, not only to hear what he actually did to the little girl, I think another reason why the family doesn't want this to go to trial is to find out how this little girl ended up in this man's possession for any length of time. I think, in my opinion, that's probably another piece of it. But let me give you guys the fair usage. Just remember that I said it. You're probably not going to hear that from any other podcast, but you heard it from me.
Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107.
We had somebody in the chat said mom needs to be locked up for negligence, homicide for allowing him around her daughter. Well, it's hard for me to disagree with your sentiments there, but that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. It just makes me wonder, how did we get here? And there has to be a predicate person that allowed that to happen. If you guys would do me a favor, even if you disagree with what I'm saying, just leave a comment. Please hit the thumbs up to at least share this video so more people can see it and hear the story, okay? Here we go.
Brand new at 5, Rensselaer police say they are not surprised that Robert Fisher died at the Elmira Correctional Facility this week.
That breaking update was first on 13 last night. Fisher only spent a few weeks behind bars after he was just convicted of murdering and raping little Josephina Cunningham. She was just 3 years old.
News Channel 13's Tessa Ventulin is now here live with us to share what police told her today. Tessa.
Hi, Rachel and Steve. Well, the Rensselaer police chief says they were informed about Fisher's death, but they're in the dark when it comes to how Fisher died. That's being investigated by the Department of Corrections and Community Services. Police Chief Warren Famigletti says it's a difficult situation for everybody involved because of the trauma this horrific death has for the family and the investigators who worked closely on this case. Hearing about Fisher's death brings that trauma back for so many. Fisher's death comes 6 weeks after he was just sentenced to 20 years to life in prison for Josephina Cunningham's death. He pled guilty to raping and killing little Josephina here on your screen in Rensselaer in July 2023. The details of Josephina's attack are horrific. In court, we learned Fisher drugged Josephina before raping her, then tried to cover it up, and what he'd done by taking Clorox wipes and scrubbing her face. He scrubbed her face so hard that he burned the pigment right off her face. Chief Famigletti says he wants to make sure everyone knows of the terrible things Fisher did to Josephina. Did you expect this death to come?
We didn't not expect it, right? It's a horrific crime. Everybody knows what he did. So we didn't expect him to have a smooth time in prison.
Coming up live at 6 o'clock, the conversation a Rensselaer police investigator had with Josephina's father after learning about Fisher's death. Rachel and Steve.
It's just an awful story, Tessa. Thank you so much.
For those who know how my mind works, it's like I want to get everybody in prison, locked up, who had something to do with this. So, of course, you guys know that I have some strong feelings about this alleged mother who would leave her child with this man he's just a friend. Why? Why was he worthy of babysitting your child? Why was he worthy of babysitting your child alone? Why was he worthy of having unfettered access to this child? Where was the child's biological father? And again, this takes me back to my point of situations like this, not all women, but a lot of women that I have seen in my stories on my channel specifically, who will let anybody watch their children besides the biological fathers. I don't know this woman that's the mother. Don't need to know her. All I know is that this man had access to your kid and shouldn't have, and you provided that access. There are fathers who have to go through days, months, and years, and tens of thousands of dollars in family court to get visitation rights to the child that they created, that the mother would have never had access to produce if not for that man's seed. Too many times we only put emphasis on the woman because she has to carry the child and have her body change and go through all of these things for 9 months, which is a very traumatic thing to go through. But I think we all respect that in society. We always have, we always will. So why does it diminish the value of the man who provides the seed to the soil that gets fertilized? The man is not valued, the father is not valued, the father is never spoken of in these situations. And the biological father would have to go through all of that and would have done none of this to his own damn kid. So how does this pedophile earn that high of favor with the mother to just out of the blue, yes, you can watch my young defenseless child. That's why they didn't want it to go to trial. And that's that's the accountability that I'm talking about. I think in our society, we run from the real accountability. We run from the real problem, or we just don't want to have the discussion. How many of y'all that know people that as soon as you start talking about something difficult, they want to change the subject? We'll talk about this later, or yeah, let's just never have this conversation again. We're just going to act like it didn't fucking happen. How we got there absolutely matters. Yes, you punish the bad decisions, the bad actions, but you also have to look at how we got there. Who provided access? Who took their children to the thug zoo, to the pedophile zoo, and allowed their child to be mauled by the thug lion? That person also has to be brought to the table and held accountable as well. That is true justice. When the family and friends and community start pointing the finger at that mother, you played a part in this too, and say that to her. When y'all get some gumption, when y'all get the cojones to say that to the mother, that's where we can start to make a real change. Otherwise, she'll just go make another kid. She'll put up a GoFundMe. They'll go release some balloons. And haven't learned a thing. They haven't learned how to truly prevent this. Random people are not certified babysitters and shouldn't be babysitting your kids. If you don't have the funds, don't have the kids. Josie, sweetheart, angel, I promise you, if you are in my family circle, we don't let random people handle our children. Not a chance in hell. Princess, R.I.P. Thank y'all for listening to her story. Leave a comment, please. Thank you.